I'll open the Monday, February 10th, 2020 meeting of the Winchester Select Board. My name is Michael Betancourt. I serve as chair this evening. The chair of the Select Board, Mariana Golubov, is going to be calling in, as well as Select Board member Amy Shapiro. With me tonight are the Town Manager, Lisa Wong, Select Board member Jackie Welch, and Select Board member Susan Verdicchio. Just to let you know, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 24th, and we'll be in regular session, and that is to begin at 8 p.m. And we're going to jump around a little bit in our agenda tonight, and so I think the first thing that we'll start off with are any matters from the audience, and anybody that wants to speak. I know that there may be a few people here that might want to say something. Please come up if you could. Yeah, please, if you could come up and just say your name and
My name is Margaret Bertocchi, and I'm president of the Winton Club. And I am here today with our two cabaret co-chairs, Phyllis Gleason and Gail O'Grady. And we just came to the town to thank you for allowing us to use the hall to celebrate our 100th cabaret. We really appreciate that. We know that it can be a bit disruptive to the town employees, but we try to be respectful of the space and hopefully we're successful in that. The club and the town hall have a long history. Our first cabaret 100 years ago was here at the town hall. That's amazing. And only for a few years, other times, during renovation and so forth, that it wasn't here. So for many Winton members, January, the auditorium is our home. So we really appreciate all the effort and the flexibility that you folks do. And we also love to, or I don't know if historically, I don't know if you're aware that we put money aside every year for some future improvements that may be needed and so forth. So we've done that over the years, and more recently, about 2 years ago, we did some work behind the curtain borders and some legs, I think they were called. This year, we replaced some of the dimmers in the auditorium and so forth. So that's our way of thanking you, too, for the flexibility and the appreciation. And obviously, we want to continue the relationship for the next 100 years. So just wanted to thank you.
thank you so much. It's a great value to the town and to the community, so thank you very much.
Just to second that, thank you so much to the Winton Club. I mean, what you do for the community over 100 years is just like incredible. Even 1 year is amazing, but over 100 is phenomenal. And you're such an incredible gift and resource for the town. And I know I speak on behalf of the entire board and so many people in town. Thank you for your commitment to the town and always presenting such an incredible performance, and obviously a great cause too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. My name is Anthony Conti, town meeting member, precinct 2, and I'm here because of concerns that I've heard that the proposal that has been made to, or offered anyway, to lease land at the high school site for a swimming pool, as which I understood was to have a limited duration of 2 years, and now being considered to be extended. And my constituents are very concerned about this proposal because it would have a very dramatic and negative effect upon their neighborhood. And so I'd like to know exactly what the status of that proposal might be.
Thank you, Mr. Conti, first of all, for your many years of service as an active member of town meeting. We are going to be addressing resident concerns regarding Skilling's Field, and I imagine that will factor into it. That's on our agenda, and I'm going to move that up because I know that there are a few people here that want to have that conversation, and I will say that we may not have answers for you this evening. We certainly can take questions and get information back. We've had an ongoing relationship with the neighborhood, and I know Swim Winchester has as well. So I'll start into that in a minute. I just want to see if there are any other matters from the audience.
Thank you.
If there are no other matters from the audience for comments that are otherwise not on our agenda, then we will move into the agenda, and first of all, just give it an opportunity for the board members if there are any comments to make. Jackie?
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. I just wanted to mention that the three of us, of course, will be participating in the Winchester Foundation for Educational Excellence Trivia Bee this Wednesday. Just wanted to encourage everyone to to support Winchester Foundation for Educational Excellence, as well as so many of the other wonderful philanthropic organizations in town. This particular event, if you may be interested in going or watching on WinCam, will be conducted this Wednesday from 7 to 9 in Town Hall. So it'll be quite a fun, it's always an extremely festive evening, and of course, a wonderful cause. So I don't know if my colleague Susan wants to add anything to that, but just wanted to kind of remind folks if they want to watch it on WinCam or in person.
I have nothing to add. Thank you for reminding everyone. It's always a great event.
Yeah, it's a blast, and historically, we don't always do so well, but we have a good time, and maybe with some of our new members, we'll be able to have a better, at least make it to round 2. I think we should at least have that happen. So, but it's a blast, and WIFI really raises so much money for our schools, and it's a necessary component of the town. So, please, we encourage you to join us for that event. So now we'll move into our business, and we're going to start with number 2, which is resident concerns regarding the construction at Skilling's Field. And I know, Mr. Conti, you've made some comments, and certainly you can come back up when you want to, but if there are other members of the audience that wanted to speak to that in particular, please come up and state your name, and we'd be happy to hear from you. As I said, we may not be able to provide answers right now to your questions, but we'll be happy to provide them to you at another point. And if you could sign in on the sheet that Patty's provided for you there, that would be helpful too, as well.
Patty,
Yep.
will people remote be able to see what's on here?
10 minutes, right?
The one called summary.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you do it here?
Well, we certainly want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we appreciate the Select Board allowing us to be on the agenda. This is actually the first time the neighbors have had the opportunity as a part of the agenda to be invited to talk about Skilling's Field, which has had a lot of activity on it, and certainly something that we appreciate the time and the consideration that you give to us.
And Jeff, if I could, if you could introduce yourself as well before you begin your presentation, and then we'll start with, kind of what is standard for us is kind of a 10-minute presentation that we can and have some questions and take some notes, if we could.
Sounds good. So I'm up here with a bunch of members of the Friends and Neighbors of Skilling's Field, but my name is Jeff Dean. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 2, and I live at 18 Summer Street. I can see my house right over there. It isn't a floodplain or abutting a floodplain, but it also abuts the beautiful 16-acre Skilling's Field. Many of my neighbors as well are abutters or people who care deeply about the town. They care deeply about the field because that's the part of the neighborhood that we have the opportunity to use most. We have some very specific concerns that we'd like the Select Board to hear, and we actually think there's specific and immediate action that you can take this evening, and that you probably have an obligation based on past statements to the neighbors to just, if you don't have the answers, to commit to a timeline to give the answers based on past commitments made in joint sessions in this forum. So to jump right in, I'm not going to use the calculator. Somebody else should. So Skilling's Field is a 16-acre field that is a huge asset to this town. I think it was a gift from the namesake of that field, certainly abuts it, but it isn't a floodplain. Culvert runs through it, so therefore we have a river that runs underneath it, but it's essentially a former swamp with several tanneries that abutted to it. It has a tremendous amount of contamination in there. It was used as a town dump for a while, and then to fill it up, it was filled up with incinerator ash. So you can imagine that what's in the ground probably should stay in the ground. And when we've done past work on that field, the town's taken great efforts to ensure that dust, debris, and other things are not danger to the community. But we've had a 7-year journey of construction on that field, starting in 2013 with the planning of the high school project, the flood mitigation, and field remediation, all sort of packaged in one, where the first surface borings were taken. So since 2013, for the past 7 years, something has been disturbing that soil. Something has been disturbing our peace and quiet in the neighborhood, And oftentimes, and the town has record of this, oftentimes people have started working prior to the 7 a.m. start time. I don't know that fines have ever been issued, but lots of phone calls have been placed, and the police have certainly shown up. But between the environmental remediation, the flood mitigation, the high school construction, the moving of the temporary to the permanent field, parking, the multi-purpose field, fixing the remediation of the flow, so the swale didn't work. I'm sure this body has taken a look at that, and there's additional work that's gone on, but the engineered water flow didn't work the way the engineers said it would. And this is really concerning for a neighborhood that has flooding in it. So trust the engineers doesn't always work. Sometimes water is going to go where it wants to go, and again, many of my neighbors' homes are in the floodplain itself, and they have flooded 7 times in the past 30 years. So specific to the projects themselves, they've caused physical damage. The driving of the deep pylons for the high school actually reverberated through the neighborhood, the digging up to add the 4th culvert, tremendous amount of dust blowing through the neighborhood. The town was kind enough to pay for cleaning and to do some remediation on some of the cracked walls. But construction on that field has worn on me, it's worn on my family, it's worn on my neighbors. The psychological stress and the impact to our quality of life and just general happiness is significantly impacted by activity on that field. The town-led activities are about to come to an end, and we just simply ask the town formally acknowledge that we're done. Enough is enough. And the one thing that's out there is not a town-funded activity, although it is more than 2 years ago something that the town did give conceptual approval for, but doesn't have the legal permission to actually grant. But the conceptual approval for the exploration of, lots of caveats, the possible construction of a swim site located on that field. Again, it's in a floodplain, so it'll be above ground, an above ground indoor pool. That seems lovely, so it'll just make the building higher. But the thought of having more construction after 7 years is simply too much. And the town put a stake in the ground on January 16th, 2018, established very strict guidelines of what the requirements need to be met by Swim Winchester. It provided a time period for them to come back to, and there's no public record of them having come back. But let's talk about Swim Winchester and the proposal. We'll go quickly through this because I think most people know it. It's a private group. They're trying to do something very nice for the community, and we appreciate that. It was started around 2012. They'll probably give you the correct date. They published a feasibility study in 2014, so 6 years ago. They conducted a site alternative study in 2015. This group, the Friends and Neighbors of Skillingsfield, had the opportunity in 2017 to express our concerns to the school committee, and although we were initially added to the August 28th, 2017 Select Board agenda, we were removed and never able to get added back in. So we have a full analysis of what we think is incorrect in the feasibility study in terms of the pricing, the business case, the potential liability to the town, and the site alternative study is just frankly plain wrong in many cases in the selection of what they've had. I think the Select Board agreed with that because on September 15th of 2015, that then version of the Select Board, as posted on the Swim Winchester Facebook page and also referenced in the Daily Times Chronicle, selected the Middlesex Park, which is the area across from the Packard tennis courts, near the splash park, near Beauregard Beach, as the location or the preferred location for the town to consider developing a swim site. So we went about our lives happily dealing with construction on our field. In the summer of 2017, we learned that the new preferred site was going to be Skillingsfield, more importantly, the northeast corner near most of our houses and neighborhoods. And they sought to seek approval to do geotechnical borings. Those geotechnical borings were something that would disrupt the soil, and we had the opportunity to, from comments, speak to that and suggest that there should be no new borings conducted without additional environmental remediation. That was not something that was agreed to at that time, so there has been no new environmental remediation. I will point out that there are 11 deep site wells constructed in that field, 11. It's a 16-acre field. One well, one boring, 6 inches wide for 1.1 acre. They found heavy metals, they found some other things, most of it on the other side of the field. When they found an anomaly, they decided to, we'll just dig another one. And their 6-inch core sample missed. And so didn't find that same anomaly there. But there are things that we've brought in front of other audiences. We have collections of silverware, glassware, junk, heavy metal objects that have come out of that field. So we're very concerned about that. So we were surprised, because at that time, The select board said that very preliminary, early stages. The chairman at the time said parallel track for a field management study. And then the then vice chairman encouraged the neighbors to meet with Winchester and discuss the issues. He indicated the likelihood that many of the issues could be resolved. Didn't resolve any of those, but on January 16th, the Joint School Committee and Board of Selectmen passed a resolution. Again, there's a lot of caveats in here. We hereby approve in concept the use of a portion of Skilling's Field, and you can see which portion that is, subject to the following conditions, including it is expected that Swim Winchester will report back within 2 years to both bodies. So we're past that point in time, and we're certainly looking for some answers on that. We wanted to give everybody a heads up. So on August 19th, also from comments, not part of the agenda, Swim Winchester, we came to this audience, Brian Sogoloff, who will speak in a few minutes, that they're currently raising funds outside of that approved footprint. A huge concern for us because now more neighbors are impacted. They added a travel circle next to the neighborhood, and it took up more space, impeding on field space for all field playing users in the town. And then we also wanted them to consider the negative side impacts from the neighborhood. Again, back in 2017, it'd be easier, we should be able to address some of these issues. At no point has any issue ever been addressed relating to traffic, relating to safety, relating to the use of public funds, any of those things. So what we'd like to do is go back to where we were 755 days ago, nearly a month past the 2-year deadline for where Winchester is, and just talk about where are we as a town. Publicly, there's nothing on record. We don't think anything's happened. If nothing has happened, then nothing has happened, and then that joint resolution, I would presume, dissolves, and we'd like the select board to take some action on that.
And so, yeah, the resolution, the important part is the demonstration by Swim Winchester that it can fully fund, and sorry, my name is Brian Sogoloff, I'm at 11 Summer Street, if you want me to introduce myself. That it can fully fund the construction and associated costs of the facility through private donations. It's expected that Swim Winchester will report back within 2 years, and to both bodies. And this was due to comments that, not comments from board members that we wanted to make sure, they wanted to make sure to articulate an endpoint in the process, allowing for closure for the surrounding neighborhoods, and not to have this looming over our heads for the rest of the time. And so again, the first bullet point was the demonstration that it can fully fund construction and associated costs. I don't know, we haven't seen any financials to this effect. According to a 2018 tax filing, they have $87,796. And posted today was that they have $230,000 for a new design study.
So I might need that calculator. $230,000 raised over that 2-year period is $10,000 a month. That's outstanding. It would take exactly 100 years at that rate for them to fund the $12 million 2014 price of the pool. They're nowhere. They have no money.
Second bullet point was the agreement of the agreement regarding the design of the facility, especially with regard to environmental issues relating to Skilling's Field subsurface and flooding and stormwater management. We haven't heard anything regarding the subsurface hazards. The minimal borings that have been done, as Jeff mentioned, don't provide nearly enough information with what is under the soil in that area. And in addition, as we stated, we've seen a larger footprint which will dig up more space. The third bullet point was the agreement regarding an operating plan, including contingencies in the accompanying agreements, such as any lease, operating, other agreements for the facility, with the understanding that management and operations would not rely on town personnel or finances. Again, I don't know if this has been addressed, that there's been no public record of any engagement, but I would state that the financial feasibility study is based on 2014 data. Since then, several competitive sites have been established, and we're in 2020 money, in 2014 study, and so minimum wage has gone up, stuff like that. The financial study is no longer really viable for the pool. The fourth bullet was the agreement regarding accommodation of the neighborhood impact both during and after construction, such as traffic, parking, and lighting. We met with them one time. We were offered to meet with them one time, January of 2019, where we were included on a meeting where they unveiled their new expanded footprint design, which takes up more room the approval, the approved Lot A. And we, questioned that and rejected that at that point, and there was no follow-up since then. And lastly, the availability of a draft or final field management plan or study sufficient to allow this board and committee to assess the adequacy of fields and facilities for schools and youth sports. We have a new field management study. I attended the meeting with the consultant. The field consultant directly said that he did tell the fields people that this will affect the number of available fields. We will be losing a small field. And although we have enough small fields right now, that's may not be true in the future. It's not going to be true in the future. We're going to need more small fields. And a small field can also be used to alleviate the lack of large fields. If you need to practice and you don't have a large field, you can practice on a small field. The small field can be used recreationally by other citizens while games are going on the large field. And the small field could be used for, I'm sorry, I lost my spot there. Can be used recreationally during the games. So it has always been our stance and our primary issue with the project is giving up a good field, a good small field that we're going to need. Fields are always going to be a commodity for a building that could be placed at any other site. And that's the 5 bullet points that we're
So we would like, we would like at some point soon some answers, because we've been 7 years of construction, 2 years of limbo relating to the swim project. So, and this is our ask. You may not be able to accommodate them all now, but we certainly want to put those out there. We'd like there to be more recognition or some awareness, right, that the field and what happens on that field directly impacts our quality of life, and that our neighborhood, like every neighborhood in Winchester and every family in Winchester, matters. We'd also like to recognize that we actually do have property rights, and that those property rights don't get exceeded by an exuberant group that would like to do something in a particular spot that they have no privilege to. We have property rights, and the hardship that's currently being created at some point needs to come to an end. And it's not Swim Winchester that's responsible at this point for that. It's really the town. The town is the organization that has continued to hold open the opportunity for this site to be selected. Despite our operating expense challenges, the recent override, the need for probably a future one, the desire to build a new Lynch school, the desire to build a new Morocco school, all of the things that we could be doing with money and space, that hardship is real. Our time is real. Your time is valuable too. So the more issues that we can put in the done pile, probably the better. We'd like there to be a public position on the comments that we raised on August 19th. That was 5 months ago. What action has the town of Winchester taken in response to Swim Winchester raising funds on the unapproved footprint? I don't know the answer to that. What engagement has the town of Winchester had with Swim Winchester regarding the 2 year ago joint resolution? There's nothing on the public record. So it either means you've done nothing or what you've done has been in private. We need to know, what has the town done in support of those resolutions? And if it's nothing, that's hugely valuable information for us. So what we'd like to do is here that Swim Winchester is in violation, because all the facts that we are aware of indicate that Swim Winchester is in violation of those conditions on January 16, 2018, 755 days ago. We'd like clear guidance to the neighborhood on the future of the town's position on what Swim Winchester should be doing on the field, but all other building considerations. Obviously, the town needs to keep its options open, but we'd like there to be some closure, at least on the swim project, but on any proposed projects in that field. We'd like Swim Winchester to get clear guidance too. We think that they're trying to do a tremendous service for the town. We don't think that they will pass the zoning board, the planning approvals, the ZBA, the vote in town meeting, or get the funding if you select this site as well. So clear direction to Swim Winchester would help them to do something that could be beneficial for the community. And really what we prefer, and what we think is perfectly within the power of this body, even as early as this evening, is a declaration that they are in violation of that 2 year report back period. If they haven't reported back, I don't know how they're not in violation. If they have reported back, I don't know how that's public. So they couldn't have reported back. And so that frees up the town to use their space and time for something else. It allows the field sports communities to plan in that field that could be placed there. There's a group of people that talked about putting a playground there. That would be a nice addition to that area as well. But we need to be allowed to plan for the future that doesn't include a swim structure on Skilling's Field. We just need to know as soon as we can.
Thank you. We do appreciate your engagement in this process and meeting with Swim Winchester. That was one of the kind of criteria that we set out from the beginning. And I know with these long term projects, it kind of ebbs and flows. But we have been in touch with Swim Winchester on a scheduling basis, and they have been trying to get in here on our agenda. And we were waiting for certain things, the field master plan to come out as well, so we could evaluate that and the impact, and then also some of their fundraising, which they now have announced. But it's more our fault than theirs that they haven't been before the boards again. It's a very difficult scheduling exercise to get the school committee and to get all our staff and to get the select board in at the same time, and we would like you to be a part of that process as well, as you have been from the beginning. So we will certainly make a larger effort to bring them in to have an update and to be consistent with the resolution that we had in 2018, and we will be in touch to kind of answer some of these questions as well that you've brought before us tonight. Are you able to send us some of your PowerPoint that you submitted? If you could forward that to me or the town manager, that would be helpful to make sure when we do get together, we're addressing your concerns accurately.
We certainly have a longer list of concerns specific to every aspect of this project that have never
Yep.
been heard. This was really about the commitment
Thank you.
that this board made to this neighborhood. And so it sounds like we're,
So I'm just curious, Barbara Bucagno, I'm at 15 Summer Street, I'm also a neighbor,
Yep.
and I'm curious because I'm kind of newer in the neighborhood, and I've been updated by my neighbors about what has been going on and what I've been observing since I've been there too, in terms of other things going on the field. But telling us, and I understand that there's a process and that it's difficult to gather everyone, I think we need some sort of deadline. We can't have this thing hanging over our heads for an undetermined amount of time. I don't think it's fair to the neighbors.
Thank you. I think that was our intention with the original deadline, which is just kind of, we've met
Exactly.
recently, and part of that was a question of feasibility. And I think they have raised money for the project, and typically when you're looking at long-term projects like these, sometimes the feasibility part of it is the first fundraising step, and then other steps come later.
Barbara,
We don't know where that's going to lead, because we haven't been updated publicly on that process, or privately for that matter, as far as the board is concerned. So we will schedule a meeting, and we will certainly notice you. If there's an opportunity to get together with Swim Winchester between now and that time, I would encourage you to do that. And we're happy to help facilitate that process as well, before we have a more public response where we share the results of their studies with the community.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm missing something. So is it a matter of, you say you encourage us, the neighborhood, to meet with Swim Winchester? Don't you think the town has an essential role to play here?
Sure. I mean, I think that getting together and having an update, I think that you've done that before. We're happy to be a part of that conversation. We're happy to schedule something in a public session like this, but sometimes, it takes a lot longer time than we have available for these meetings. So you can ask the full degree of your questions. When we get into the soil borings and some of the technical information, it's a little bit above my pay grade. And if we're answering some of those in a large session, it could be a couple hours. And I just want to make sure that they're answering your questions and vice versa.
right. And so they've had 755 days since the deadline, and they've had more than 2.5 years since we first met with them to talk about traffic. They've done nothing with traffic.
Okay.
They've done nothing with environmental. They've done nothing with stormwater management. They've done nothing with impact on neighborhood. They've done nothing with noise. They've done nothing with hours of operation. I don't know what another day, week, or month will give them that they haven't had the opportunity to do.
Susan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to volunteer some information and maybe, a path forward, at least on the environmental remediation. I don't think that we've really made any kind of announcement or anything. as it's been a long haul on in remediation, but there is more information that we could certainly get from our consultant on where that stands. And it's my understanding that, we're marching along according to the mass contingency plan, and that site has been, worked on. And we could, that's just not something we actually sort of put out there on the agenda, something's finished. And we could get, check into that and have that information available for you, when we do this, the next, public session, when we talk to Swim Winchester.
But thank you very much, and we will be in touch, and we will schedule a public session with Swim Winchester to report back on the joint resolution from 2018 and what we set forth there. And as I mentioned, if there is an opportunity for you to get together with them, I think it's always helpful. I think that both of you have shown a good degree of humility in continuing those conversations and partnerships. So we appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
So
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you, because obviously we want to hear from you guys, but I just wanted to kind of add that I'm sure in the list of so many things that my colleagues were indicating, they also would want to thank you for providing this kind of list of your specific concerns, because it's helpful for us to understand, or I'll just speak for myself, to understand where the neighborhood stands on this. And obviously, it's not all the details, as you pointed out. This is just some at the current time period. And it's helpful the way you framed this, so that we, and I'll speak for myself, feel more informed about specifically what your concerns are, but obviously putting the engineering aside and some of the other issues about traffic, et cetera, but for this day and for this moment in time. So this is definitely informative, so I don't want you to sort of leave tonight feeling that, that it was not received, because it definitely was. And it's very informative presentation. And I think what my colleagues are indicating is, like, jumping from here forward, is that there is a process that we're gonna be embarking on. But I just wanted to pause for a minute and thank you for providing this, because this is helpful. And it's helpful for, I'll again speak for myself, that the way the neighborhood is framing this, and the importance of the neighbors' viewpoints about the plan as it goes forward, whether or not there might be, some areas that kind of overlap with interest and areas that don't. So it's really, really great that you guys spent the time to develop the presentation and to inform us, so that then, we're always up to speed on where you guys are. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, and thank you very much for your time, because it's really helpful for us.
And this isn't a total list of our concerns. This was actually
I understand.
what the joint committee put on them for the 2 years. We would have put more, obviously, because we have more concerns. And I'm just sorry, there's no public record of any of these bullet points being hit. But if there is a private, if that has happened, how do we go about getting informed of that?
It's my understanding that it hasn't happened, so unless I hear otherwise, we will reach out to Swim Winchester. We hope that you do as well, and we will schedule a meeting accordingly. We appreciate you coming in. I think I gave you 20 minutes, and I started with 10. So, and we appreciate, as Jackie was saying, the effort that you've gone through to raise these concerns, because we know they are concerns of more people that are just here tonight. So, thank you very much. We're going to move on to business item H1, which is the tool design construction phasing schedule. So we are embarking on quite a bit of work in the town center over the next year or so. So we have retained the services of Tool to help us plan properly and carry that out.
Yep. Amy?
Yep.
Amy? Can you
So-
hear us?
Jeff?
Oh, I don't know.
Just gonna wait until we
Yeah.
set up.
Did he forget it?
So she's on, is this on mute?
I think she's on mute, right?
Okay.
She can hear us.
Amy, there? Okay.
Hey, Amy.
Also, before we get going, just wanted to say Amy Shapiro has joined us, another select board member. Thank you for calling in, Amy.
Sure.
We are starting with business item H1 with tool design, and you begin whenever you're ready.
Commenting on my rocking chair.
Oh, yeah?
If I sat, I'm probably gonna break, so I'm not changing seats with her.
We appreciate that, Jay.
Erica Guidaboni from Tool Design. We've been doing, as you said, a lot of work just to try to coordinate all the various traffic and non-traffic construction projects we have going on over the next year. So with that, I'll turn.
So we have it all figured out. It's going to be easy,
It's gonna
right?
be easy.
So, great.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Sorry to bug. Can you just move it a little closer to back? I just can't hear him very well.
There you go. How's
Can
that?
you hear me? This is Erica. Oh. Amy?
That's better, thank you. Yep, that's better, thanks.
It
That was funny.
All right.
We need some kind of drone device.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Move it around.
There you go.
So we're just kind of kicking off this this project, which is to ensure that the construction phasing is thoughtful and strategic, looking at all the exciting and safety enhancement projects that are going to be happening throughout town. We currently have I think there's 10 projects that we're considering. I'm counting 9 on the screen here. We're looking at 4 intersection projects, so they're kind of mapped on the right here. You'll see that a lot of them are kind of actually right around the center of town. 4 projects that are looking to enhance safety, reduce crosswalks, things that you've heard quite a bit out of tool design in the last year. They're actually going to go into construction this year. Main and Highland actually just went out to bid last week, so that's exciting. The other 3 are Main at Washington Street, Mystic Valley Parkway at Waterfield Road, Church Street at Waterfield Road, and then we're also we've met with the engineers of record for the 3 the bridge projects in town, which is the Swanton Street Bridge, Lake Street Bridge, and the Waterfield Road Bridge. And then sort of the kind of ones that the town doesn't have control over, but we want to ensure that we have as much understanding as possible on are the MBTA station renovation and the Eversource work.
Mariana?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
So I'm taking Amy away
No,
to get Mariano.
Mariana's on a different.
Yes, Select Board Member Mariano Goluboff is going to be joining us in a second, so
Is he on a-
everybody seemed to be traveling this week, but with vacation next week, and we really couldn't move our meetings, so we appreciate your patience. It's,
Do you want us to keep going, or do you want to wait?
why don't we wait till Mariano jumps on, and then we'll continue. Hopefully, we won't lose our large viewing audience. Go. We don't have a commercial that we can fit in right in there, so we need to work on that. So.
Want me to sing?
I was gonna say, I'm trying
Yes.
to make it fill the time for
If you
so-
could do, yeah.
Unfortunately, you guys, I don't believe that I provided a copy of the full presentation. I imagine that Amy and Mariano won't have copies of this. They're going to be just listening.
I think they may be streaming from
Oh,
where
okay,
they are.
okay, yeah, well,
Two.
Yes, exactly.
I can provide the slide deck if that's helpful.
Jay, perhaps a little tap dance on the table.
Yeah.
There you go.
I would take a picture of that.
Sit in
You
the
like
chair
that?
and see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Hi, Mariano. Hello?
All right. So
Thank you.
Mariano and Amy are now with us, and so we can continue with the presentation. Thank you, Erica, for patience.
I'll just repeat myself really quickly. We're just kind of kicking this off and understanding that there are a number of projects happening in 2020 in Winchester. So we'll be looking to ensure safe access throughout the construction areas and be strategic and thoughtful about the work that we're doing out on the various pieces of Winchester. So on the screen now I have
an example of the outreach plan that we're kind of talking about. We've been talking about a kind of a multi-prong approach that includes, a big part of that, I think, is using the Winchester website to ensure that people understand what's happening. I think a big cause for concern is mostly just, being aware of what's going on. Just if you understand the why and what the disruption will be potentially and can avoid it when possible, and knowing that we have a thoughtful approach to what we're doing is going to be a key element to ensuring success on this project. So on the screen is an example of an element of the website that we could talk about. We could do this as we talked about backpack flyers, providing them to school committee, teachers, principals, to just kind of stuff in the kids' backpacks to ensure that parents are aware of what's going on in town. Leaving some of these out, at the library, and then having what's going on site signage right at the site so that you could use that QR code on your phone or just write down that website, or you could read it right here to get a sense of what's happening and why. So this is an example of one. Don't get too in the weeds about what it actually says. It's just sort of made up to sort of fill in the information. But the idea here is that we would have kind of this branded approach that everything kind of looks similar, is easy to understand. It doesn't have any engineering jargon. It's more just about why we're doing the project and how long the duration will be and what you can kind of expect. And something like this, as I mentioned, could live on the flyer, could live as a sign at the intersection, and we're also looking at places we could put it on the website. The website could also include updates, so as the project is getting started, things that might be changing in the coming week or month, we could keep the public kind of informed and aware, in the hopes that people will avoid the area if we think there's going to be a reason to avoid it. I know with a couple of the bridges we're talking about full closures or partial closures, so ensuring that people understand what the detour might look like, and safe passage for pedestrians and bicyclists throughout the process. So this is just a kind of a screenshot of an example of the ways that we could use some of that information. I had a copy of, I apologize, I thought I made I'm stealing your copy. I had this slide at the end, and I don't know why it's not on my slide deck right now. The board has seen this before, and I can provide a copy. It's a draft right now, but it's essentially MS Projects laying out the various projects with their timelines and schedule for bid through construction. I apologize that it's not on the screen.
They already have that.
We have seen that. We know that it is a little
Yeah.
bit evolving, so.
It was in the packet that went out.
Right.
But it was really small, so I was looking
Really well.
forward
Beth printed
to
a great copy. Thank you, Beth.
a bigger
but
version, but
Comes
too bad.
back to trying to package these projects together to ensure least disruption as possible. We also want to make sure that the town is getting good competitive bids from contractors.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to bid some of them together because you'll get a better price for a bigger project.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at the McCall School, ensuring that those are happening around the school when school is out of session. So those are the.
Is that possible?
Part of it, yeah.
That was the end of my presentation. Apologize, the last slide wasn't on there.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I don't know if there are any questions from the board or any other comments. Beth, Jay, Meg? No.
I did have a question just to see if I could, I was hoping I was interpreting this correctly about the Swanton Street Bridge. It says that the total construction period is going to be around 240 days, and then is it broken up into two sort of phases? One phase where it's full closure of the street, and then afterwards it would just be, I guess, one side would be open, and you could maybe get 2 lanes of traffic to go through that one lane?
Yeah, I
Is that
believe
what
there's
you're
a
thinking?
period where there's full closure, and then there's, they could work on one side or the other and
Yeah,
reduce disruption on that location. So that's, I believe, which consulting firm was working? HB, yeah, so I was in contact with that person. If we have further questions on it, or I will have further questions on it, I have his direct contact, so as we get a little further along,
Yeah,
I'll ensure that I
okay.
have a full understanding.
So if there's some work up front before the bridge closure goes into effect, and
Right.
the bridge will be closed, and then some work at the end.
and I was, hoping we could get some of that done during the summer as well, but it looks like we can't.
It's the permitting. Yes.
Okay. I mean, as you said, this whole thing should be something that the schools are really aware of, because if you close Swanton Street, I think that's going to put some traffic over onto Cross Street, and that is something that, is an area where students getting to Morocco are using, so you want everybody really well aware of what's going on.
And there are some pedestrian impacts as a result of the Swan Street Bridge closure as well. So
True.
that's something we want to make sure anybody walking to the high school is aware of.
True, yeah, the high school as well.
We've
I
been
think-
involved with
yes.
the bus company also.
Yeah.
Yeah, true,
So-
okay.
And you've met with the school committee as well, and
Yeah.
the superintendent, I know, has been very involved in this
Exactly.
process. And, unfortunately, the Swanton Street project, the second to last one in our flood mitigation program, town meeting had green-lighted that
Right.
a year before, and just things being as they are, it got delayed, and this is what happens when projects get delayed and we don't take care of them right away, is costs increase, and then we have to go back to town meeting, and then the permitting, forces us. And we were a little bit surprised, I think, with the Lake Street Bridge as well, that came on sooner than we had anticipated. All of these bridges and culverts, they are way beyond their useful life for what we had planned, more than 50 years ago. So in one way, we're lucky, but it just so happens that everything's happening at once, but they're necessary for safety. And so I don't know if Amy or Mariano, I don't know if you had any questions or comments.
My question is just when will we have firm start dates for each of the projects? Do we know?
So the main at Highland project is currently out to bid. That project will
Okay.
start as soon as we can award the contract and as soon as the weather. So typically we have an April 15th street opening moratorium. If the weather's
Okay.
good, Jay
Yep.
might be a little bit generous there with that target date. We might be able to start a little bit sooner than that. The other projects, we're still wrapping up the design for the McCall, and that will be bid as soon as possible as well. For the Waterfield Road Bridge project, I think, is ready to go. I think there's one permit outstanding on that, but we don't expect that to take too much longer. And so I guess those are the three kind of immediate ones.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else, any questions or comments?
No, but I would say the bar graph was really helpful. I mean, because
Yes.
it's just a different way to
Yes.
look at
It
it.
really
It's
shows you how
it's
they
not
all,
on the
they
screen.
they overlap, so it is
And also the
helpful.
projects that are shorter in duration, then you can kind of quickly grasp that, so, thank you.
So I just want to reinforce that there are going to be traffic impacts as a result of these projects. There's just no way around it. We're doing everything we can to minimize that, but we have to be realistic that when we close major thoroughfares, there are going to be delays, there are going to be, things that we'd prefer not to be happening. But as you said, these are all necessary projects.
As far as the construction time, the ones that are during the school year, I'm not advocating something, I'm just kind of like asking, so typically would they not start like at 7 because of the rush hour kind of traffic? So they
So,
just kind of.
like the Swan Street Bridge, once the bridge is closed, it doesn't matter, right? What time they start. Ideally, I think the more working hours we can give them, the quicker everything will go.
Sure.
So that's a benefit there. The McCall project, if we're not able to complete all that work during the summer and we have to go into the fall, then there will absolutely be start time restrictions there.
Okay.
I think more so in the morning. The afternoon is probably a little bit less trafficy, so we have a little bit more flexibility there. The morning would be, no work until probably 9 a.m. or so.
We're hopeful at that point, if it were to fall, run into the school year, it'll be kind of touch-up things that can happen on the side of the street, and be a little less disruptive.
Okay, and for Lake Street, are they thinking just a partial closure on that one?
So that's what's in there right now is one lane. That design is still in a preliminary state, so that hasn't been confirmed, but that's the intention at this point.
And of course, the partial closure will elongate the project construction
Sure,
schedule.
yeah.
Something just crossed my mind sitting here is, this isn't like, McCall where you have a whole bunch of construction personnel, but you do have some crews that have to come and work. And is part of the planning, like sort of identifying for them where they can park as well?
Yeah, park, work zones, drop-off zones, you know, yeah.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thank you very much. We
Yes,
appreciate it.
great.
If there aren't any other questions, then we'll move on to,
It's definitely a Rubik's Cube,
Yep.
especially Lake Street. I mean, half the town goes to the high school using that bridge. So even if it's a partial closure, I
Just
wonder
go
if
down
you guys will
this,
just
Lisa.
kind of do it
Just we'll
one
do
way or
Waterfield
something.
Right.
RFQ.
Yes, I think the intention is one
That's you.
way from
Okay.
DPW towards Stop and Shop at this
Mhm.
point.
The good thing, Beth and Megan stay here all summer long. They're not taking any vacation.
That's right.
to talk to these projects.
Awesome. Should be fun.
When does the Swan Street Bridge start? That's right. We go
Out of
vacation.
town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Erica.
So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is business item 3, which is the Waterfield RFQ. I know Lisa is going to talk a little bit about that, and we had a good meeting just prior to the select board meeting in this room with some of the respondents to our requests. So
So the Waterfield RFQ, what I have on the screen for those of you on the phone is the project timeline. The housing production plan was adopted in 2018. The town started the RFQ process in October of last year, working with Mass Housing. We launched the RFQ and received responses in early January. A committee reviewed the RFQs and looked at the 9 proposals and found that 8 qualified in relationship to the criteria that we posted in our RFQ.
can you just talk a little bit about why we chose to do the RFQ process too?
Yes.
Just so people
Yep,
know
so
what
the-
it means.
We decided to do a 2-step process, which is to do a request for qualifications, pre-qualified developers, and then do a request for proposals. Because this is a complicated site, if we simply went to an RFP process, then we would have to both evaluate not just the project, but the capacity of the developer to do the project. So by doing an RFQ process first, we were able to evaluate the developer's ability to do a project on the site. There was several criteria that were involved in evaluating the developers. There was 6 major areas. One was their experience with residential mixed-use development in a suburban community that is transit and pedestrian friendly. So basically their downtown development, transit-oriented development experience. The second was their financial capability. So are they financially able to complete the project? Their local experience, or are they familiar with the local and regional real estate markets? Whether they have local partnerships, so their success in working with local communities, including residents, businesses, committees, and officials. Like, so for example, a criteria was that they had letters of recommendations from other local municipalities. Design and planning, so giving us basically their resume of projects that show their ability to create a sense of community and place, embracing local town character and environmental sustainability, which is embracing and implementing high standards of environmental sustainability. So if we went straight to an RFP, what you'll see in the RFP is that we want to see proposed uses, concept drawings, and zoning and permitting plans. These actually cost a lot of money and time to do. So we imagine a lot of developers might not want to spend a lot of time doing these things unless they've been pre-qualified. So this is one of the ways to expand the number of developers that are interested in the site by pre-qualifying them. And again, if you had to look at their concept drawings, their proposed use, but then you also had to look at the other criteria that we put for in the RFQ, it's much more complex. So we at least know that the developers, the 8 that are moving forward, have at least have experience, looked at environmental sustainability, have the financial capacity, and so on and so forth. So the 8 developers, so there's 9 developers that submitted RFQs. They're listed right here: Civico, Diamond, Sinacorian Urban Spaces is a development team, Just to Start, Manzo, Mary McKenna and Associates, MPZ Development and Capstone Communities Development, NOAA, Pemrose, and Wind Development. So 8 out of these 9 met our RFQ submission criteria. Mary McKenna is a local architect who submitted actually a very compelling letter, not a complete RFQ submission, but a letter stating her preference for us to look at having a strong artist and cultural component. As you know, she's been pretty front and center in putting together a cultural district for the community. I'm meeting with her tomorrow to talk about a grant that they received to do a project. So her role in this was primarily to make sure that we understood that arts and culture is important. So we want to thank her for making that known. And the other 8 developers not only submitted proposals that qualified, but also showed up at an earlier public information session tonight and are excited about moving forward. Going back to the process, this timeline here says that we would be launching the RFP process sometime in March. And I was supposed to update you on the MBTA before this, but the MBTA has sort of shifted their timeline, so we're going to have to shift this accordingly. We want to make sure that we have the final plans for permanent easements from the MBTA before we put an RFP together, because that impacts, they're looking for permanent easements on a Waterfield lot. So we can't issue the RFP without having that information. So my guess is that even though we'll start drafting it this month, that we'll probably launch it sometime in April or May after those have been finalized and approved by town meeting. So the hope is that we would still aim for a fall town meeting, but we'll just have to shift the RFP process by 2 months. So there are some additional RFP components that we are looking for public input and for select board input. And these are in areas of affordability, the types of units, the mixed use, parking considerations, the design and massing of the project, the regulatory approach, the disposition terms, and the purchase price. So what are the town's preferences in these areas, and how highly do we rank these areas? So as we develop the RFP, I know there's some select board members who will be part of that process. We will, once you see the final RFP for your approval, it'll take all of these things into consideration. So right now, I just need your sort of your blessing of the RFQ results and getting your permission to move forward with the RFP process.
Are there any questions from board members or anyone in the audience regarding Lisa's presentation, or any comments about why we shouldn't move forward or anything like that? I don't know, Jackie, I know you've been a part of the process as well.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate the town manager's time and effort in making the process so well organized and so transparent with respect to the criteria that was expected. I think we're all pleased at the number of submissions, which was great. And so based on the town manager's continued organization and approach to the project, it seems that, it'll continue to move smoothly and hit on all the important criteria that have been identified. So thank you so much, Ms. Wong.
Susan, do you have any comments?
No.
We've been working on this for at least as long as I've been on the board, and there's been a lot of stops and starts, and what we really endeavored was to get developers that were as excited about the opportunity there as we are, and And I think that we got that, so it'll be exciting to see the next step of the process. I don't know, Mariano or Amy, did you have any comments? It seems like it's the general consensus of the board to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a key property to the town center, and the deliberate way that we've been following to develop it, I think, has been really good, and I think we should, we should move forward with the developers who have responded with the and move forward with an RFP.
Yeah, I just think, Lisa, thank you, and I think that it's really encouraging to see the number of qualified developers that are coming through, so it works.
It worked, yeah.
It did, yeah.
Great. So we'll move forward with that and look forward to hearing of the developments in the near future.
No pun intended.
That's right. That's right.
Or pun intended.
Well, yeah. So then we'll move on to Lisa. I'm not sure which one we want to take first. You wanted to have a conversation about the budget, or
Can I do the budget after all the other stuff, so going back to the donation acceptance maybe?
Sure. Yep, absolutely. So we'll return to the beginning of our agenda. We've been jumping around a little bit to the acceptance of donations. So I'll take a motion to accept the donation from the Johnston family.
Motion to accept the donation from the Johnson family in the amount of $2,000 to be used towards future supplies for the fire department, and with appreciation and gratitude.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Unanimous. And then we'll move down to the appointments. There are two that are listed there, and do both of those need for us to waive the waiting period, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first one is in accordance with section 4-2B of the town charter. I've made the following promotional appointment in the DPW. Thomas Connolly from Winchester to a W-15 General Foreman, Water and Sewer Department.
So I'll take a motion to waive the customary 15-day waiting period.
Mr. Chairman, a motion to waive the 15-day waiting period for the DPW Water Sewer General Foreman promotional appointment of Thomas Connolly.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Motion carries 5-0, unanimous.
Okay, in accordance with the town charter, I've made the following regular full-time appointment at the Department of Public Works Water and Sewer Heavy Equipment Operator for Timothy Catrou from Methuen, and I'm requesting the 15-day waive.
I'll take a motion to waive the customary 15-day waiting period for Timothy Cotreau.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the waiver of the 15-day waiting period for the position of DPW Water Sewer Heavy Motor Equipment Operator.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Motion carries 5-0, unanimous. Were there any other appointments that we had that
Yep,
came
I
in
have,
afterwards?
I have one announcement. So the secretary in the Department of Public Works, or the principal clerk 1 position, had been formally announced, and that individual accepted a position, she withdrew a few days later, and stayed with her current employer. So we're announcing the new appointment of Alicia Peters in Wakefield, Mass., so the S-26 principal clerk position, DPW. Her start date is February 27th, so there's no action needed at this time.
Great. Thank you. Okay, were there any other topics that, Lisa, that you had for us, or should we continue down to the next item on the business agenda?
Yep, I've got a bunch of topics, so I
Okay,
will go through these
sure.
as quickly as possible. So the voter registration deadline for the presidential primary is February 12th, so we'll be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Then early voting starts on February 24th. We put a new election calendar on the town website, so you can check out all the dates there. We also want to remind seniors that they have until April 1st to apply for various state and town funded exemptions to reduce their taxes if they qualify. Also, the town clerk is hosting a meeting for the census on Wednesday, February 12th at 6:30 PM at Town Hall. So Town Hall will have on Wednesday night the public hearing for the 40B project in this room. It will have the census meeting in the Winchester room at 6:30, and it will have the WIFI trivia be at 7 PM at the auditorium. So I will try to be at all three at the same time. But
The trifecta. That sounds like your best day of the year right there.
So I will maybe, hopefully not make it to the second round of the trivia fee. Okay, so the affordable housing, there's a new listing at 222 Washington Street, Unit 2, for $234,000. We encourage people to contact the town manager's office to see if they qualify. The all hazards mitigation plan, the engineering office held the annual meeting. It was rescheduled from December in January, so the current plan is valid until May of 2021. The carriage house, last time I updated you that we were starting the RFP process. That has been postponed, and we are preparing an order of magnitude cost estimate for the envelope and major systems repairs and replacements. So basically a portion of what the larger RFP would have done, but really looking at the building envelope first, which is a much lower cost initial item to do. And we're doing a lot of that with in-house staff.
Do we know what the cost window is for that?
So we think that looking at the mold will be about $2,200, and we can absorb that in-house. We believe that a structural estimate will be about $10,000. And the whole project was going to be about $100,000. So we think this is a good few first steps. We would need to know the structural integrity and the mold issue anyways for whatever happens with the building. So we think it's money well spent.
Great, thank you.
The Feld hardware site, the project is slated to be on the agenda for the planning board later in February. That's one of the exciting mixed-use projects the town is looking forward to. In the high school, the engineering studies are underway for the drainage analysis of the back parking lot. In the IT department, we now have Wi-Fi at the Mystic schools, and there's a new FiOS line that was installed at the scale house to replace the copper lines. The MBTA, I'll talk about that in a second. The Mill Pond building, the laundry building, the 10 Converse Place building, it's called many things. It's the white building located next to Town Hall. But the development team that has been meeting with the planning board over the past few months finally closed on the site on January 21st, so we're very excited about that. Parkhurst elevators, this is an amendment to prior dates that were given. So the FALSA bid openings were held on February 5th, and the bids are now due on February 25th. I can't remember the original date, but it's been pushed back to February 25th. The parking meters, we're doing some major upgrades to the parking meters downtown. So we're putting the contract, we're executing the contract to do that. The small cell wireless, this was approved by the select board at the last meeting, but I do have some updated information on the noise part, so I'll bring that information to you at the next meeting for you to consider amendments. I talked about the Waterview RFQ, and just letting you know, I've been appointed to the MMA's, the Mass Municipal Association's Public Works, Energy, and Environmental Subcommittee, so I'll be starting to attend their regular meetings.
Excellent.
Okay, so other things under updates. At a previous meeting, you asked me to look at our sidewalk policy. So looking at the possibility of by right projects and whether we could require sidewalks at those locations. This has been discussed for several years. With meeting with in-house staff, we think that our first initial step is to develop a good map that actually shows where all the sidewalks are and the priority areas. Because we think the sidewalk policy is just one of the many tools to get to where we want, which is to figure out how to create sidewalks. But we think that a first step would be to actually look where the sidewalks are, see where we want them, and to come up with sort of a toolbox that includes a potential sidewalk policy versus just coming back and talking about a sidewalk policy. So I just wanted to make sure that we were, that I didn't forget about that we were working on that. And then the MBTA, the update to that is that the MBTA had told us sometime in mid-December that they were going to get a cost estimate about 3 weeks after the 90% design. So this is almost 2 months ago. So we did get the 90% designs around Christmas. 3 weeks after that was the week of January 13th. And we haven't heard back from the MBTA. We don't even have a timeline of when we're going to hear back from them regarding what the cost estimate means. We have heard that the cost estimate is about $5 to $6 million high. So that's, it's 15% higher. So we feel like it's hard to have a conversation with them if we don't know what the implications are. I've spoken to some other communities that have been in the same boat, and one of their strategies is frankly to ask for more money. I think that it wouldn't be the first agency to see cost overruns and then to find more money to make sure that a project is fully funded. This is a top priority for the T. It's a top priority for the town. So in that light, even though I don't have a lot of information, we have enough information to know that there's project overruns, and we haven't heard anything for a while. So I've drafted a letter to the general manager and to the Secretary of Transportation. That's Dear Secretary Pollock and General Manager Poftak, on behalf of the town of Winchester, the Select Board greatly appreciates the work of the MBTA and its design engineer in advancing the Winchester Center Station Accessibility Improvements Project. In participation with town agencies, a design has now advanced to 90%. The community response has been positive, as this project benefits ridership significantly, improves safety and convenience, replace deteriorating structures, and fulfills an obligation to make this station fully accessible. The MBTA has been responsive to the long-standing advocacy by town officials, our legislative delegation, and your riders. We're also heartened to see that the MBTA is now looking forward to a modernized regional rail network consistent with the consensus goals of the Rail Vision Project, as supported by the Fiscal and Management Control Board, and will be developing a staffing plan consistent with the transformation of the rail system. And as a side note, on your update has a link to a blog that was put out on, a podcast that was put out on Friday, actually saying that the MBTA has missed their initial marks on those goals for modernizing the system. So very interesting to see what's going on. As the Winchester Center project approaches final design, we are writing to ensure that the capital project cost is fully covered in the upcoming 5-year capital plan. As this is an MBTA project, we expect that the authority will adhere to its business practice in designing and fully funding a station that serves the long-standing interests of the region. We appreciate that the cost is likely to be higher than in a recent construction cost estimate, and that there is a possibility of further changes once the project is out to bid. The town is available to discuss these matters at your convenience. Thank you for your consideration. So I've drafted this letter for the select board to consider. Susan, you're really good at making sure that I'm grammatically correct, so I'm looking for your approval, subject to Susan's checking the letter.
It looks really good, looks fine. It does mention that the MBTA was working, with our legislative delegation, so would this be something that they would get copies of as well?
Yes, actually, they're, on the back side.
Flip it over, okay. Yep, good.
And I've sent this to our delegation, letting them know that this is something we're looking to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, that was
Senator
my only.
Jalen as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. This is excellent. I know that it's been a long slog here with the MBTA, and these delays, they cost money, and that's what we see with all our projects. So a 15% project cost increase is something that's not surprising, but there's not $5 million to pull out of the design that we have, so there's just not room. So everything is, I think, is cut down to the bone as far as what the minimum standards of the town, and for us to have a acceptable project. And it's time to get going, and we appreciate how hard you've been working on this. And I know Selectman Golubov has been a little bit more engaged in these meetings too. So I think if it's the consensus of the board, then we'll submit the letter that Lisa has written. I don't know, Mariano or Amy, if you have any comments.
No, I don't think
I just wanted to mention that, Lisa, I think it's great that that you took the initiative to draft the letter, because as opposed to just kind of laying in wait, which obviously wouldn't be, any of our nature necessarily anyway, but just to keep the sort of polite professional persistence and to continue to kind of make it known how important the station is to our community and also to the state, as you so eloquently put in such a concise way. So I really applaud your sort of jumping at this opportunity, even though there's I guess a quiet aspect going on right now, but then kind of filling that void with just kind of a reminder that we're here, this is important, and it's also important to the state. So I thought the letter was great, so thank you so much.
So to put this in context, it is now February 10th. The MBTA is looking to host a public information meeting in 2 to 3 weeks. So assuming we get information regarding the impact of the cost estimate even tomorrow, we only have 2 or 3 weeks to respond before a public hearing, right? And this is just best case scenario that we get the information tomorrow. So I feel like we'll have very little time to get the information. So let's say they host the public meeting in the first week of March. So that's the week of March 1 through 7. We need to have their plan finalized so that we can put it on the warrant on the 13th. So there's only a week, or not even like a week and a half, between that public meeting, whatever needs to happen for changes, and then submitting the plan for town meeting. So this is, the senator and I have had multiple calls with various folks at the MBTA, and I do have 3 separate meetings this week to hopefully move some of these issues forward. But again, this is in the context of not knowing what the larger impact might be. So we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, are you considering maybe a sentence near the end, something to the effect of, that kind of pushes that along, that we're looking forward
Do it
to
or
hearing?
else, something like that?
No, that we're looking forward to hearing from you within, hopefully if possible in the next week or so. Or something, I'm not
Yeah, it's
trying to
good to
craft the
always have
sentence necessarily, but something that,
Expectation of time in there. is good.
exactly. Given the circumstances or
Okay,
something along those lines.
I can do that. Great.
I think at this point, cost escalations are, it's an issue that the MBTA has to deal with, and, we have been, the town has been working with the MBTA on this project for close to a decade, and, we've met with everybody at the MBTA, and I think the letter has to, like Lisa wrote it has to be very clear that the T has to continue to fund the station.
Okay.
Great, thank you. That will be sent out. We'll look forward to hearing. The MBTA actually had even a more aggressive timeline that they would have never made when we originally had the conversation. So now we're on another, we move from aggressive timeline to aggressive timeline, and just, but we have had some, movement over the past 6 or 8 months. It's been positive, and so the general manager, Mr. Poftak, has been helpful, and our delegation, Senator Lewis, Representative Day, and Senator Jalen, have been hugely helpful in moving this project forward. So we appreciate that and look forward to getting it done. So I'll move on then to business item H4. We have under the Capital Planning Committee appointments, Helen Filio is applying for a reappointment, term to expire January 1st, 2023. So typically we bring in new appointees to the committees, but Helen's been a longstanding member of the Capital Planning Committee and its chair, and so I'll take a motion to reappoint Helen Filio to the Capital Planning Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I move for Helen Filio to be reappointed to the Capital Planning Committee, and I would also note that while it's important to have a variety of aspects and perspectives on that important committee, her institutional knowledge over so many of these years seems particularly beneficial, and definitely would move for the board to reappoint her to a term to expire January 1st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. It's unanimous, 5-0. So then the next item on our agenda is H5. That's the FY 2021 budget. So,
Thank you.
oh, thanks.
Okay. I'm passing out the budget summary, and there's also a PowerPoint, both of which have been emailed to you and is up on the board right now. I'm going to start with the PowerPoint presentation. There's just a few slides. So the first is just a general overview of revenues. So our property tax revenues make up a large portion of our revenues, and I'm going to go into the override impact in a second. State aid, we're using the governor's revenue sheets, and we've seen both state aid and local receipts increase, and primarily in the form of funding for the schools. The operating override, we have an excess capacity right now of 3.75 million. The next slide goes into this a little bit more detail. The operating override that passed last year was for $10 million. Last year, our budget showed that we were going to use 6.7 million. We actually are using $6.24 million of that, which means that we have that excess capacity of 3.756. I think the goal that we had last year was, this was sort of like a 2-year override projection that we're hoping to stretch to 3. And I'm happy to say that at least the initial estimates that we have is this will be at least a 3-year override. Our fiscal year 21 budget proposes to use somewhere between 1.86 and 2.2 million of that 3.7, which would then leave, you can sort of do the math, but anywhere from $1.5 million to almost $2 million for increases for next year. Okay, the next slide shows the municipal and school increases. So the school budget, which is on the right, this was approved by school committee. This is a 3.74% increase. The municipal budget side, this is for your input and consideration tonight. It has not yet been finalized, but it ranges from a 4.09 increase for a level service to a 5.39 increase in the requested budget. Okay, so there are, okay. So for staff-related requests, these are some of the highlights of additional services that we are considering. The building department is part of the reason why local receipts have been going up. They are incredibly busy. People are still building. So the building department has requested 10 hours for additional administrative services. Right now, they only have one full-time person that's there for administrative services, and they have somebody who works there part-time. They're looking to increase the part-time person by 10 hours.
And that would be a week, per week?
Per week, yes. So I believe she's around 19 hours, and that would go to 29. So I'm talking with them right now about what exactly that would mean. It would be significant coverage for the current person who's there, because we've seen not only a rise in people fixing up their houses, but we're also seeing all of these 40B and housing projects. So there's a lot that's going through zoning. So the administrative person also oversees zoning meetings. And right now we do not have a backup for her. So that's an issue. So we're hoping that with these additional hours, we can create a better backup, as well as deal with all the additional load, and start to, if we can, chip away at putting everything online. So everything that comes in, we are scanning and having accessible, but we still have a backlog of information we'd like to also scan. So I'm
support for the ZBA.
Yes. So I'm not sure at this point in time. I'm exploring the difference between 5 hours and 10 hours and what can be prioritized, but So that's going to be considered in the final budget. The comptroller has requested an additional administrative person. So it is it's an admin secretary 3, but what it is in essence is an accounting administrator. And this is part of a reorganization that the comptroller would like to do to help operate more efficiently. Let's see, so it'll be a confidential secretary that helps with bills, check processing, payroll, attendance records, timesheets. They'll help file benefit enrollment forms and changes and prepare health insurance payment authorizations monthly, maintain the equipment in the office, and assist in general insurance activity. So Stacy didn't write this in her explanation to me, but we're also trying to pull Stacy into increasingly complex decision-making, and oftentimes she's up there just trying to get the W-2 forms out if people are short. So we have a very smart and capable comptroller who is working long hours doing things. So this is something that I'm actually not sure we'll be able to do this year, but it's something I just wanted to put on the table that we're interested in looking at some additional help. Department of Public Works, they've requested 2 positions. A person in their cemetery, again, they really only have one individual working there, and they would like some backup, and they would like an additional crafts person in the building division, sort of a carpenter. This is a person who would help with the backlog and work orders for every single building, similar to the position that was hired this current year that was specifically for the high school, but this one would be for all buildings. So I asked Jay which one he would prioritize, and he would prioritize the craftsman position right now over cemetery if we were to only do one. The health department is requesting some additional inspectional services. We outsource some of it, and they're very, very busy in terms of inspectional services, and there are also some additional sort of high-level work and policy work that I would like the Board of Health Director to do, and she's often busy doing inspections. So it would be, again, one of those things where we would sort of shift and look at doing some outsourcing, and then get the Board of Health Director on board with a number of big initiatives. Like, so for example, the interface in terms of looking at mental health, and there's a lot of other public health initiatives we'd like to work on. IT, they are requesting a part-time network administrator. Our compensation schedule has this particular position anywhere from the first step is $59,000, the last step is $84,000. It's important to note that these are really tough positions to fill. The school department has a very high-level IT director that they've been unable to fill. I think they've gone out like 7 times to try to find somebody. So we might have to look at the compensation schedule. This is something that we have not been able to fund for years and years and years. I was in Reading recently, and they have an IT department of 4 people. We have an IT department of 1. So we are looking for ways in which we can bring somebody on board to do some of this work. Again, it could be a part-time person, it could be a consultant. Frankly, we're just trying to figure out if we can actually find somebody. It could be, it has to be the right person with the right skills who doesn't mind doing this on a part-time basis. It seems like a lot of IT professionals make a lot more, and they're very busy, and they're not really interested in this. So it's dependent on whether, sort of same thing with the schools is, we would go out and try to find somebody and see if they're interested, and if not, we might have to keep reshaping the position to see. The planning department is requesting another planning position. That's a department of 1. They're looking to become a department of 2. They're requesting $60,000, and a lot of this is in relation to the significant number of projects on our plate, as well as the implementation of the master plan. Town manager, so my office is considering a sustainability director. So Lexington is the most recent community to advertise their, I think they're gonna make a selection any day now. We contacted them a couple weeks ago. I think they had like 35 or 39 applicants that they were reviewing. But they advertised in the range of $65,000 to $86,000, so we would probably look in that range. Any comments on?
Could you talk a
On
little
this
bit about that sustainability director position, what you'd be looking for, kind of skill-wise? Or what role would it be filling?
So the skill sets are something that the members of the Climate Action Plan have been helping to evaluate, and we're looking at existing job descriptions that are out there, because there is a range of skill sets available. So I'm not 100% certain, or if we're going to make it as wide as possible. So allow for anybody who might, for example, have a more technical background, or somebody that might have a more sort of governmental focused background. So that hasn't been decided yet. We're sort of more focused on the task right now, which is we're applying for municipal vulnerability action grants, or MVP grants, in April, with no one to actually oversee those projects. So that would be one, is that there's upwards of $2 million in funding that we can access through these action grants that we don't have anybody to really execute and manage. We also have various other grant opportunities, and I don't have the list on top of my head, but there's a sustainability director that we looked at in a neighboring town that brought in about $800,000 in grants last year. So we would sort of be looking at the same kinds of grants that they would be pulling in, with the intention that this person would be able to pay for their salary and/or create cost efficiencies in the town through the work that they do.
And is a lot in the energy sector, like energy efficiencies, or not necessarily?
So that is part of it. Right now, the town hires a consultant in energy management, and my understanding is that the two of them would work together, and eventually the sustainability director would likely take over those kinds of duties.
And that's been a hugely influential and successful position for the town. We've saved hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars as we implemented grants, and but it's getting a little bit more complicated now that we've kind of reached the low-hanging fruit. And as you were saying, some of these grants have become quite complicated and need someone to see them through. So, and we just don't have the capacity for that. So there's a lot of opportunity for the community out there. So it would be interesting to see how it develops.
And departments who would be working with a sustainability director, like, planning, DPW, engineering, for example, have been supportive of a position like this, because they don't have the capacity right now to take on these projects, and they see the benefits of these projects on the town.
So, I think the Climate Action Committee has spent a lot of time working on the Climate Action Plan, and I know that they're close to finishing a very comprehensive Climate Action Plan. And to be able to implement a lot of those things, I think we need somebody at the staff level, sustainability director. We clearly are, all the departments are working very hard at it, to have somebody who is able to work cross-functionally with all the departments. And as Lisa mentioned, a town that was able to get $800,000 in grant funding just in 2019, I believe that was Concord, who recently hired a sustainability director. So I think that that's a critical position to help the town in the future, both in reducing greenhouse gas emissions as well as in dealing with the resiliency aspect of it, whether it's flooding, heat waves or any other issues that we will see from climate change. I think this is a decision that will pay for itself and that it's very much needed.
Any other comments?
I do have one more slide. Okay, so the last slide
A
is.
lot more money.
Just a couple of things to note. So you'll see that there is a large increase in the town clerk's budget. There's fluctuation there because it is a presidential election cycle. So that's why there's an increase. Also, the 4 union contracts that we're negotiating right now, the fire, police superior, police officers, and clerical. So those are part of the unallocated wage line item. There's an increase in health insurance right now that we're trying to work on. There's also a master plan implementation line item that's $100,000 that would be it would be under my office's control, but it would be this master plan implementation committee that would be working on the priorities for that. And then I just want to note that there's you'll know there's a pretty big increase in the DPW, even for a level service budget, primarily because of this, which is the additional transfer station expenses, additional $273,000 for our new solid waste contract, because as you know, the tonnage essentially doubled, and then additional 56 hours for the additional Tuesday hours. As you know, we additionally cut that back. The community requested that we open earlier on Tuesdays, so we are doing that in this budget cycle.
Lisa, just a question on the town clerk's budget. I think part of that might be due to early voting and maybe something else. And I'm wondering, I know in previous changes to voting schedules, town clerks were able to apply for some state money because it's supposed to be it can't be an unfunded mandate, so there might be some opportunity for us to do the same thing, I would hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. So we'll move to the consent agenda as well. And I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety as written.
Motion to approve the one-day alcoholic beverage license consent agenda as written.
Is it,
We'll move
second,
on.
yep, got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, unanimous. And then I'll take a motion to approve the other submissions on the agenda, including the parade permit for the Inca Fair and the additional listed items.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of the other items, literally other capital O, on the consent agenda, including the parade permit, the public amusement license, the other items listed on here, including the January 6th and 27th, 2020 minutes, with appreciation to Patty.
Yes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So now I will take a motion to move into executive session. Well, we should close, I guess, our session. Mariano or Amy, do you have any other comments or questions before we move into executive session? Okay. I'll take a motion to move into executive session, which is closed to the public, to discuss the Asa Fletcher Fund submission pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual. Also pursuant to Mass General 30, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares, and the chair does declare so, an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the governing governmental body, and also pursuant to collective bargaining negotiations pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21A, 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the select board go into executive session.
You can
to-
say so moved too, if that's easier.
Yeah,
I would- so we
exactly,
don't have
to
go through
discuss
the-
what the chairman has identified
Sorry.
in the docket item.
For the purposes of reconvening, only to close the meeting?
Yes, and to close our current session, you mean?
To close our current public session and go into executive session.
Right.
And then to reconvene after the executive session, only for the purposes of closing the
Of
regular
adjourning
meeting.
the regular meeting, correct. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, I'll take a roll call vote. Jackie?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yeah.
Amy?
Yeah.
We're actually just going to take a 5-minute break, because I think we've been sitting here for a little while, and then we'll come back into executive session.